All right. I love when I remember to hit to automatically record because then I don't have to remind myself. But welcome everybody. Come on in. We are so excited for this event today. Caitlin and I put this together, like maybe 3 weeks ago. We talked about doing this and we just thought, why not? Let's go for it. Let's talk end of year emails. It's something that I know in my previous roles, have spent a lot of time thinking about, a lot of time learning about. And of course, that was a few years ago, and so much has even changed since then. So I'm personally also really excited to learn from you today. I'm happy to report that we had over 100 people. I think we capped out at like 115 or so people that registered. So super excited that so many people are going to get their questions answered and hopefully learn something for their end of year emails because it's so, so important. All right, as people continue to come in, first, I'm going to just introduce myself. My name's Carly Euler. I'm the marketing director here at MemoryFox. If for some chance I do go on mute for a second, that is because I adopted a puppy a couple weeks ago and she's over here. So if she acts up a little bit, that might be why I'm on mute. Okay. So just so everybody knows. But yes, I'm the marketing director here. I love putting together events like this. I especially love that I get to work with so many great people that are doing really just wonderful thought leadership and just learning a bunch of, teaching me a bunch of new things about nonprofit marketing and about nonprofit fundraising, just like Katelyn's going to do with us today. I've especially been loving this Ask Me Anything style because then we get to actually get the questions answered from the people who have the questions, which is like the most important thing we can do. So, oh, thank you. Somebody congratulated me on the puppy. Thank you, Amy. So, I think without further ado, I would love to introduce our guest today. Her name is Katelyn Bond, and she is a dynamic force in the nonprofit email marketing, or she is a dynamic force in nonprofit email marketing and the founder of KB Digital, which is an email marketing consultancy. With a passion for inspiring generosity, she has led transformative multi-million-dollar campaigns for renowned organizations like National Geographic, Amnesty International, and the Trevor Project. Have you ever heard of them? I know I certainly have. Those are big names. And since launching her consultancy in 2018, Katelyn has been dedicated to helping nonprofits harness the power of email marketing to maximize fundraising success. Thank you so much for joining us today, Katelyn.
Thank you for having me, Carly. I also have a puppy and I locked him up with a bone because he has been chewing up everything in my house.
Well, you know what? Quick puppy story. Last night I put our puppy in a crate. We got a crate for her. We thought she might relax, take a little nap. I had to go run a couple errands. And when I came back, she had busted out of the crate. So this isn't just not your normal puppy. This puppy is an escape artist. So we're just gonna have to see what happens today.
Yeah, my puppy he's just chewing up everything. He chewed up my brand new shoes. He chewed up my daughter's shoes.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he's locked up. He's in jail.
Wow. Yeah, wow. Okay. Brand new shoes. I feel for you on that.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. That's like the ultimate sadness right there. Okay, well, okay, so we both have new puppies. Love that. If anybody else has a new puppy, drop it in the chat. Let us know. Or if maybe you are gifting a puppy for Christmas or something like that, let us know.
Ooh,
But
fun.
I think I know you've already seen these questions, but as you know, we have so many questions, and I think let's hop right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so the first kind of theme that I want to talk about is frequency and cadence of email sending when it comes to end of year emails, because that was the group of questions that we got the most of. So these came from a wide variety of people, but really a few topics that I want to kick off with. So first, coming from Margot, probably the most obvious question that might be that everyone is wondering, which is how many emails should I send for my end of year campaign?
Oh, Carly, I love this question. This is probably the most popular question that I get, and not even just in regards to a campaign, but in general, I think people are kind of stumped.
Yes.
How many emails do we send? We don't want to be bombarding people. We don't want people to unsubscribe. And I think someone on this list of questions
Yeah.
said just that. Like, how do we manage unsubscribes? Someone complained that we're sending too many emails. Do we listen to them? Do we send less? And so I love to just give people this perspective because when you are a small to medium sized nonprofit, maybe you don't know what other nonprofits are doing, and especially the larger ones. And so, yes, I have worked with Amnesty International. I've worked with the Trevor Project. I do work with the Cancer Research Institute and the National Breast Cancer Foundation. So I'm not trying to like name drop to make it sound like, I'm the best, but I just want people to know that these organizations are sending minimum 12 emails for their end of year campaigns. So let's break that down a little bit because some people may be like, "Oh, 12 emails, that's so
I
many."
know. I just wrote that down because I was like, okay, this is new information. I must know more.
This is minimum. I will tell you, Amnesty International sends triple that. And the ones that are larger send a lot more than that. And especially if we are talking, which we can talk further about segmentation, which is requires you to send a personalized email to each segment. And so if you're sending, let's say you're sending 5 emails and you're sending that to 3 different segments, that's 15 email builds, meaning like each email is its own build. So thinking about your segments is something too that you want to have on your strategy. Like before, I would say if you don't have that in place now, it might be a little too late. Um, but 12 emails, meaning like each email should have some sort of theme and messaging, and you might tweak it a bit for each segment. And so starting with Giving Tuesday, this year we were lucky enough to have Giving Tuesday pop off in December. And so December is a little bit nuts. But starting with, usually I suggest start your end of year campaign and kick off the giving season with Giving Tuesday. And so you should have a couple emails surrounding that day. I won't go too much into that since it is past, but that usually looks like one email before, a few on the day of, and a thank you after. And then we want some cultivation emails in between Giving Tuesday and the last week of the year. And the last week of the year is when you're going to get a majority of your donations. Giving Tuesday, you'll probably hear me reference Next After a lot. They do a ton of testing, and so if you are not familiar with them, they've released a updated end of year benchmarks that they are currently updating as we go. That says that Giving Tuesday is actually not the day that we should be too focused on. Um,
Ooh.
the week that we want to focus on the most is the last week of the year, specifically the last few days of the year. And so the 30th, the 31st, those are going to be the biggest days for you. And so let's really focus on those days. That's when the majority of your donations are coming in. If you can, have a couple cultivation emails in between Giving Tuesday and that last week of the year. That is just warming up your list, letting them know your mission, um, talk a little bit about, the work that you've done and why it's so important. Maybe tell a few stories. Um, and then the end of year emails are the ones that you're sending in the last week of the year are going to be straight up appeals. So that is the only goal is donations. We have multiple buttons within the email, links to your donation form. We're only sending people to one place to the donation form. Um, and I want you to be sending multiple emails on the 30th and the 31st, like even before midnight, last chance. Like I'm talking a few on that last day, really reminding people that this is their last chance to give before the new year begins.
I think that is obviously that's such good advice because I know I certainly have opened an email before and thought to myself, oh, I'm going to answer that later. And then, maybe I forget, maybe I don't get back to it. But if you send me that reminder, um, yeah, I think that that's, especially if my thought was I'm planning to give this year, I might need a few reminders to actually get my credit card out and bring it and actually fill it in, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that it doesn't have to be a brand new email. I love to tell people this hack. You can do a resend of a previous email. And so that could be a resend. It looks like a forward from your CEO or your executive director saying, I don't know if you saw this, but this is the last chance, with a little, forward note on the top of the email. That's a great hack that works
Yeah.
super well. And so it doesn't have to be a brand new email. If you sent a great email earlier in the day, you can forward it to anybody who didn't make a donation or didn't open it or didn't click on it so that you're reaching out to the right group of people.
I think that is such a good hack. And now when I see that coming into my inbox, I'm going to know that they learned that from you, or maybe they came to the session, maybe they've come to another session you've done. Um, I would that would really pique my interest if I saw that in my inbox for sure. So I would say, okay, so let me ask you this question. So you were talking about kind of what these really large organizations that you've worked with have done in the past, maybe if we consider that a benchmark. But here was a question that came from our friend Mallory. So Mallory said, in previous years, we've sent maybe one end of year appeal on top of a weekly newsletter. So if we add several new emails this year, do you think it will be overwhelming for my list?
No.
Thoughts?
No,
Interesting.
I think going back to the mindset, look at your inbox. How many emails are you getting from Costco, from Target, from Amazon? I mean, I get an email a day, and I'm not gonna lie, I like Costco. I'm a big Costco fan, and I want to know they're releasing like a deal of the day every day of this month. And I'm like, I want to know. So just compare, I want you to compare your inbox and think about the work that you're doing. Okay, compared to these people who are sending a million emails about, whatever the deal of the day is.
Right.
The other day it was a towel warmer. I was like, do I need a towel warmer? I might need
Like,
one.
maybe I do.
So yeah, I mean, you are changing the world. You're doing amazing work. I mean, Carly, that's why you and I got into this. That's why we work with nonprofits. That's why we got into the sector. I want you to think about that and think about the fact that these people signed up to hear from you. If you are getting people to opt in the way that you're supposed to, permission-based marketing, then they're telling you they want to hear from you. So until you see um, data that is pointing into a different direction that's saying like, okay, a ton of people are unsubscribing. A average nonprofit unsubscribe rate is 0.18.
Ooh.
So look at your unsubscribe rate. How many people are unsubscribing? If it is over 0.18, like how much over is it? If it's, a little bit over that, it's not a big deal, but just keep an eye on the data that is going to tell you the truth. It's going to tell you things that are not assumptions.
Wow, you really hit the nail on the head here because I say the same thing to people when it comes to social media posting, when it comes to,
Mhm.
a lot of nonprofits are getting into text messaging, right? Sending text to give. Um, just think about those for-profit brands and how often we hear from them. And maybe we unsubscribe from them if we don't want to hear from them anymore, but it's okay if people sometimes unsubscribe from you too. Like maybe they have other priorities in their lives at the moment. But yeah, I mean, Nike and Disney, they don't care how often they're emailing you or texting you or trying to get in front of your face, right? So I think, let's think a little, let's not assume everyone's opening every email or reading every social post or even a
Yeah.
text message, and let's keep giving them some content. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and if it is really something that you're concerned about, you can give people the option to update their subscription preferences. So let's say people are volunteers and you don't want to ask them for money or send them fundraising emails. You can have it as an option for them to opt out of just those fundraising emails. Like let them know, hey, we're in our end of year campaign. If you want to opt out of messages regarding this campaign, like feel free to do that. And so you're giving people the option and it doesn't feel as like greasy if you are giving them that option and you're saying up front, we're going to be sending emails because we need to raise money to sustain this amazing mission that we're focused on. So give them the option to opt out. Um, and and always, I would say always exclude if you can, folks that have already given.
Ooh,
So
that was going to be my next question. Good idea.
yeah, so if they have given recently, I would say from Giving Tuesday till, the date that you're sending these end of year emails, just exclude them from those messaging, that messaging. Either they're brand new donors or they just gave, they're probably not gonna give again. Then just exclude them so they don't feel like, I just gave and you're emailing me for more money already.
Especially if you haven't had time to share your gratitude or share like a mission update with them yet, right? You want to make sure that you're giving them some other content to take in too before you just ask them again. That's such a good point. And that was definitely a question that people were wondering as
Yeah.
well. So I think, okay, so we talked about, okay, so we had Paloma had said, I'm dealing with unsubscribes at the end of the year. How many emails are way too many when considering unsubs? And you said that the average unsubscribe rate is 0.18.
1-8.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to, okay, so similarly, we had a question that came in from Jess, and she said, I've heard from two of my donors that I'm sending too many emails, but, we already talked about what too many might mean, but
Mhm.
if that's just 2 out of 7,000 people on her list, should she really take any action here? Do you think that any one-on-one feedback like that is worth taking action on, or what sort of action should she take?
Oh, I love this. I actually just had somebody email me that last week. So it kind of hits home. Like I didn't realize I was going to be signing up to get all these emails to my inbox. Um, okay, so it's kind of this is two questions. One, we're talking about unsubscribes.
Right.
Um, I think it's so easy to take unsubscribes personally. Like, they don't want to hear from me. They're unsubscribing, and you go in and you check. You're like, who unsubscribed? And you see like your brother's name unsubscribed. You're like, why would he do that? That really happened to me. When I was working at a nonprofit, I put my brother on the email list and he unsubscribed. And I went through the unsubscribe list and I was like, how dare he
And then you didn't
unsubscribe
talk to
from
him
my
until
email?
Thanksgiving. He's uninvited.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? So don't take it, first of all, don't take it personally. Unsubscribes are actually a good thing. They are cleaning your list for you. And so there are going to be what they call your list is going to churn, meaning people are going to unsubscribe, become inactive, dead emails on your email list. That's why it's so important to keep up with cleaning your list. But when people are unsubscribing, just think of it this way. They're not for you. They're not your people. They don't want to hear from you. They're not going to give to you. They're actually bringing all of your metrics down because you have them on your list. They're counted as a person that you're sending an email to, but they're not likely to click on anything or donate or volunteer or do anything that's going to really help your organization anyways. So if they're unsubscribing, um, you gotta just let it go and think of it as almost a positive thing. Like, okay, well, they weren't for us. We'll find more new people that are. So I always like to just say that it's not a bad thing to have unsubscribes and always use the benchmark to see what your average unsubscribe rate is. And if it is higher, then maybe consider like digging a little bit deeper into why people are unsubscribing. So there's options. Sometimes when you unsubscribe, there's options like why. You can
Right,
ask,
right.
have a survey, why do you want to unsubscribe? And so you can get a little bit more information from people if they fill that out. I received too many emails, or this is not, I didn't sign up for the list, or,
Right.
having those options that will tell you a little bit more about why people are unsubscribing. That's always a good idea, especially if you're seeing high unsubscribe rates. My guess is that you guys are not seeing high unsubscribe rates. You're seeing normal unsubscribe rates. And it's really important to just continue to add new people to your list as old people fall off. And so having a priority to grow your list should always be something to focus on um, as just a main email strategy.
Wow,
Uh,
yeah, we could talk about, lead gen or like list building. I almost feel like that's a whole nother conversation, right? I mean,
yeah.
having a way where you're getting new emails constantly into your list is so important when you come up for end of your email time, right? Because
Hmm.
now, you don't really have time right now to try to build your list, but starting in January, maybe that's another conversation we could have.
Yeah, yeah. I love talking about list building. That's something that should always be a priority for your organization throughout the year, and making sure that you're getting new people on your list, you're building trust with them so that when we get to year end, those new people will feel like they know you, they trust you, and they'll give to you. And so that is something else I will say, if you are sending emails and you're not seeing the response that you had hoped for, it could be due to a stale list, or that you're not communicating with people on a regular basis in between each campaign, so that they feel like when you do ask, and we are sending these like appeals that are straight up like give to us, they will want to do that.
Yeah, okay. Anybody that's watching right now, let me know in the chat if you would be interested in learning about list building specifically, and we can get something booked in the new year. So let us know, or let us know how you build your list. Drop that in the chat too. Let's share ideas. Okay, we got at least one yes to list building. We got a few. I think this is something we gotta look into.
Yes.
Um, but here's something that we did talk about a little bit. Oh, a lot of hearts and stuff going on here. Okay, this is great.
Ooh.
I love this.
We
Um,
know what our next webinar is going to
I know.
be
I
about.
think I think we just booked it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is I do want to change gears a little bit, and I want to talk about we talked a lot about frequency, cadence of sending emails, unsubscribes, stuff like that. But let's talk about the actual content of an email. What
Mm.
what should we include? So a lot of really great questions that fell into this category. First, this question came from Lily, and Lily wanted to know, can we talk about, like the effectiveness of an email that has a lot of images or it's very design driven versus
Mhm.
an email that maybe looks more traditional, like a traditional, like a letter, written more like a letter. And I know I see both types in my inbox. I personally I like both.
Yeah.
I think I have to be in the mood for certain ones maybe, but I'm so interested to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? Maybe design driven emails versus kind of traditional letter looking emails.
Yeah, this is a common, I would say, controversial topic, especially in
Yeah.
the nonprofit sector. Um, and I this is a really annoying answer, but I think it depends. And I think that you need to have a mix of both. So plain text emails, especially if you're short on staff in like capacity, and you're like, oh, we need to have pretty emails, well designed in
Right.
order for this campaign to do well. You don't need that. I just want to say, if that is you and you're worried that your graphics don't look good, you don't need graphics. Plain text emails sometimes perform much better. And there is, again, Next After has done some testing on this. Um, write emails like you're writing to a friend. And would your friend send you an email with an image in it? Probably not. However, I do think if you're building your brand awareness and um, you have some great images of your mission at work, it can also really be helpful to get people to be emotionally involved with your organization. Um, so what I suggest is to do a mix of both. I don't typically suggest doing too much A/B testing during end of year at this time, but during the year when you're communicating, you can kind of dial in and test what your audience is interested in by sending them two types of emails. One can be really designed and one can be very personalized, just personal, plain text email and see what they respond to, how many people click and open on each email to see how your audience specifically likes to receive information in emails. Um, do you have any, I know that you have some thoughts on this too, Carly. Do you have anything to add?
Oh, well, gosh, I mean, I send both types, right? I agree. It's kind of I think for me it mostly has to do with what message I'm trying to get across. Is it something that I feel like is more conversational? Like, am I looking for someone to answer a reply to me? Then I'm gonna write it more like I'm, a friend of yours. Like
Yeah,
because well, my email list kind of is my friends. I work from home, right? So this is you kind of are my friends.
yeah,
But and then some cases if I'm advertising an event, for example, for me, that's all about visuals, right? I got to do the buttons and I got to do that. So it's yeah, it really kind of goes both ways. And I agree with you that your list sometimes can tell you what they're looking for. But I did look at that study that you were referencing from Next After, and I thought that was so fascinating because I think
yeah,
we have some old-fashioned ideas, which are that we do need to be over designed or big header image and maybe multiple buttons and things like that. And we're kind of seeing that people maybe aren't so interested in that anymore. So I think it's interesting to sometimes think about things we used to do and try some new things.
yeah. I want to add to that, even if you are doing a plain text email, there are ways to make certain text pop out.
Yeah.
So if you can use bolding, bullets, make sure there's plenty of a white space in between your paragraph. You don't have too much text within a paragraph. So even if you are sending a plain text email, you want to make sure that you're following those best practices to make it scannable. People spend about, if they open your email, they spend maybe 90 seconds reading it.
Ooh,
Um, so just make it scannable, make sure you have, and that's why I think sometimes the design emails do work well because you can have the header, you can have buttons, you can have images that kind of like give your brain a little bit of a break from all of the text. So I think, like you said, a mixture of both. Uh, there's a question about how do you come up with a well-designed email, and I actually have a visual that I can share, but
yeah.
it is, make sure you have your banner, which is going to have your logo and your donate button, and then you want to have an image, a header image that likely has some text in it that's like, you know, last chance to make your donation with a donate button. That's what the image should look like. Always have a donate button on the image, some text, bullets, and then button again. And within the text, you want to make sure you have at least like 6 hyperlinks within your email. So hyperlinks, buttons, like different places where, depending on how the person reads the email, like the person might be the type that clicks on the hyperlink, or they might be the type that clicks on the button, or they might be the type that clicks on the image. So you want to make sure you have many places and they're all going to your donation form.
Right. So just to be clear, you're saying 6 places people can click, hyperlink,
Yes.
image, button.
Yes.
They all go to the same place.
Yes. Yes.
That's really good advice.
Yeah. And another question that we got was someone was saying there's a lot of priorities within the organization. So not only are you having your campaign, but then you have events or maybe volunteer related things. And so how do you make sure you're not sending too many emails, that you're not having competing calls to action? Um, and the best way to do that is through segmentation. And so segmentation allows you to pick groups of people that are interested in certain things. So if you have an event, the type of person, and hopefully your CRM will allow you to do this, the type of person who is going to attend an event is not the same person that's going to, well, it might be, but it's likely the message that's going to go to that person, the people that are interested in going to an event, should be smaller. That list should be smaller. It should be anybody who's in the local area, anybody who's attended an event in the past, so that group of people is going to be smaller than the group of people that you're sending your end of year email to. I would not exclude these people, but their messaging might be a little bit different, especially if they donate at an event or they're paying for a ticket at this event, um, or it's a fundraising event. Like that's their way of giving, and their way of giving may not be online
Right.
via an email, right? So deciding like who the audience is and how they like to give is really important as well.
I think that's such good advice, especially if you're a nonprofit that is hosting a gala and you've done it for 20 years, right? You have the same gala, the same group of people come, maybe the same, they raise their paddle at the same time every year. It's not likely they're also going to give end of year because they've thought, this is my gift that I give annually around this time. So that's important to consider when you're looking at your list of donors. I love that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think that is, yeah, such great. So segmentation. I thought that was a great question too. That question that you were referencing came from Cole. So thank you, Cole, for asking that question. And let's talk a little bit about, let's see, personal favorite of mine, but let's talk about a little bit about leveraging stories, especially short snippets, maybe thank yous, something like that, to show the impact and to how to include those in your end of year email. So what are your thoughts on including a story?
Yeah, I think we know that storytelling is really imperative. People connect more to stories. And so, like I said, with the cultivation emails that are coming before your ask, that's where I think it's really important to connect people to stories. So, highlighting anybody who is a beneficiary of your work, um, highlighting any tangible outcomes of your work is really important. And so, yeah, just weaving that throughout and making sure you use like real names of the beneficiaries. And when you're asking for things or thanking people, you can say things like, thanks to your kindness, um, Liam and 500 children like him are able to have access to school supplies and a brighter future, or something like that. So making sure that you're weaving that story in and you're also connecting it to the donor is really important.
I, yes, great advice. And I would say, um, I have a follow-up question that I don't think appeared on this list, but what are your thoughts on actually having that email come from the person telling the story? Like what if Liam, like you were saying, maybe if that's our example, what about if the email comes from them?
I think that is a great idea. It adds another layer of complexity to writing the content and getting it approved. But I think that having different senders is a great strategy in general. Like you don't want a million emails, 12 emails coming from the same person. And so if you can switch up the sender, it's a good way to also grab some attention. But make sure that you're including, when you're sending it from this new person, you're including your organization name somewhere within the sender name, or um, subject line or something along those lines, because if you all of a sudden get a random email from a random person that you've never heard of, you might not open the email.
Right.
So For example, Thorn is a nonprofit that I work with. They just sent an email from a mom who experienced a hardship, and so she wrote the email, and the email came from Sarah from Thorn.
Okay.
So it had the organization
Right.
name within the sender so that people could make that connection before they opened it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's a really good thing to consider. Like what's going to show up in someone's email inbox that's going to get them to click on that. And actually, we had a couple questions about that as well. So maybe we'll get back a little bit to email content, but let's talk about subject lines, right? Let's talk about what people are going to see in their inbox. So a
Yeah.
couple people asked, can you give me an example of a compelling subject line? Especially if I haven't reached my goal yet. Or maybe the question should be, should subject lines have an ask in them? These are two really good questions. Yeah, interested to hear what you say.
Yeah, so you should have a variety of different subject lines. I know that um, towards the end of the year, something with a sense of urgency is going to work really well. So, especially if you have a match or a deadline for a match, people love a good deal. And so, having that sense of urgency, like, match will be gone tomorrow or double your match until midnight, something like that. It works really well. I would say if you should always A/B test your subject lines, and you can A/B test subject lines towards the end of the year, because what it will do is it will send, 25% of your list will send them two different emails. And then depending on how those two emails perform, it will choose the winner and send the winner to the rest of the people. And so you could have an email like that that's like sense of urgency, and then you could have an email that's more like, we need your help to accomplish our goal, and see which one works better. I find that people really respond well to emails that are actually informal. It's almost like you're sending a message to your best friend. And I always find that those perform really, really well. So try to informalize your subject line. Take the caps off of every, what do they call that? I can't remember what it's
I
called, but
actually don't know what the term is for that, but I know what you're talking about.
yeah, like each letter is
Well,
capitalized.
yeah.
You can always tell that it's coming from like an organization versus a friend. And so trying something a little bit fun and informal, I think, is really a good idea. And then especially if you're telling a story in the email, like look at the email and see what the email is about. We don't want to make people feel like we're doing a bait and switch on them. Like if the email is a story about Liam, then the subject line should be something that is related to that story. Um, so you can choose something real quick from the sub. I always write the email first and then kind of pick and choose what I think is the most compelling. For example, this story about the mom, it talks about how there were 9 hours between the time that, he made a decision and something horrible happened to him. And so in the subject line, it said, the 9 hours that mattered the most.
Mm.
And so it really I hopefully piques people's curiosity to know like what happened in those 9 hours. Or, if you can pique people's curiosity, ask a question. There's a lot of different things that you can try. And I suggest there is two little hacks. One is, I think it's called subjectline.com, where
That's
you
the one
can,
I use.
yeah. So you can put in your subject line and it will kind of rate it as to like how good of a subject line it is and how likely it is to be opened. So you could try that. And then also you can put your email in ChatGPT and just say like, come up with 10 really interesting subject lines and pick your favorite one that you think is the best. And I always say like, what emails do you open? Think about the psychology of like, what do you open and why? And make it spend time really making formulating something you think that people are going to open. And I would say spend a good amount of time on it because if nobody opens the email, what is in the email does not matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
So do that, and hopefully throughout the year, you could maybe go back to and look at other emails that you've sent throughout the year and what the subject lines were and like which ones were opened, the most, and get, always be learning about what your people like, what kind of subject lines they like or what kind of content they like. And don't be afraid to repurpose that for year end. Like no one's
Right.
going to remember what you sent last May.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. And I think that's okay, that's got me thinking about two things. So number one, you are so right because when you're thinking about, especially if you told a story last May, maybe you follow up with that person, you say, "Hey, remember this story we told you in May? Let me tell you a little bit more about the progress that we've made, or let me tell you more about how the next step that we took with this family." Something like that is such a good follow-up that you can do with somebody to really get people continuing with that story. And I also want to say what you were saying about the subject line, about it being a question, about it being something that makes you curious, something that makes you want to click it. That's the same um, advice that I give people when it comes to making short form videos, right? You have started off by something, we call it the hook when it comes to short form videos, right? What's that hook that's going to get people to watch that video, click on that email? What is something that people are genuinely interested in learning more or wondering what you're going to say next? It's really good advice. All right, let's talk a little bit about, let's see. So now we've talked, okay, so we talked about um, oh, actually, I before we move on to a new topic, here is a question that I definitely wanted to get out there. And this question was asked by Karen. Karen said, what type of wording would you recommend if you're sending end of year emails to donors who have lapsed? So
Mm.
we're looking for people who have not given yet this year, or maybe they didn't even give last year. What are we going to do to get these people back in the door?
Right. So you want to segment your email, make sure that you're sending it to lapsed donors. And what you want to focus it on is them renewing their gift. So
Right.
I use that word a lot. Renew your gift. And before that, you can say, because you've given in the past, we want you to be the first to know about, X, Y, and Z. And we want to give you a chance to renew your gift or um, give again before the end of the year, that kind of thing. So you can be a little bit more aggressive with your ask with lapsed donors. You can be a little bit more aggressive with your ask for like subscribers who have never given. And I would definitely be less aggressive with monthly donors, major donors, like your recurring donors. These are your people who are supporting you throughout the year already. I would not exclude them completely, but I want to make sure that they know how much we appreciate them. And if they want to give an additional one-time gift on top of the gift they've already given this year, give them the option. So don't exclude them, but let them, t let them tell you no, no, thank you. You'll be surprised how many people will be like, oh, you know what? I will give an additional gift. Um, so just yeah, I would say with lapsed donors, make sure you're asking them to renew and um, think about when do you start sunsetting some of those people? Um, I know we get nervous to take anybody off of our list because they could maybe be inspired to give again. But if they haven't given in the last, 2 years, anything past that, I would say is not really worth you. That's like a very long lapse donors. I don't know that it's worth you actually reaching out to those folks because it's going to end up bringing all of your metrics down and they're not likely to give.
Yeah, I think, yeah, such a good point. It's a little heartbreaking when you when you come to the realization that you might need to remove some people manually from your list, but ultimately, if they haven't given in a couple years, I think they can always resubscribe themselves if they're interested in learning again. So that's always something that people are available to do.
Yeah.
So we have, let's see, looks like a comment here. I'm sending out I've segmented my monthly donors, and today I'm setting up the mail with handwritten addresses and a sweet John Lepp treatment on the direct mail to them.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's so good. Megan, that's great. Yeah, I think monthly donors like they're your biggest fans, and so we could do a whole nother webinar on how to cultivate monthly donors, but they deserve the extra special attention for sure.
Yes, definitely. And I know like I'm a monthly donor to a few places and I just kind of like to see what messages they're putting out, for Giving Tuesday and
Yeah.
even if I don't intend on giving again, but I like to stay in touch. I want to read what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if that's something that I think people are maybe worried about, oh, they're already giving monthly, I don't want to send them another email, then just make it a cultivation email. Like segment them out and just say, thank you for making this possible. Anything in the, like just, and then maybe add a PS, which by the way, we haven't mentioned this, but PS postscript should be included on some of your emails because they are one of the most popular, like the most clicked and converted on links within an email. So maybe you have the email and there's no ask in the email, but there's a PS at the end that, just to make it softer. Maybe you take the
Yeah.
donate button out of the banner. Like there's little tweaks that you can make that will make it more of like, a cultivation than another ask.
Yeah. Okay. Don't mind me. I'm about to go add a PS to all of my emails. So, okay, we talked a little bit about list building or we talked about some strategies for that, but specifically, I did get one question that I thought was interesting that we should talk about a little bit today, which came from Jill. And Jill said, I remember the days of print houses and purchasing mailing lists, either through a central shop or by exchanging lists with another organization. So, when does it ever make sense to purchase email lists? How do you determine which lists might hold promise? What does it even cost these days? I mean, how is it best done? What do you think about purchasing an email list?
You don't. You do not ever purchase an email list. The okay, let's say you purchase an email list, which you should not do because ethically, these people never signed up to receive emails from you. And there is a law, although it is a loose law, can't spam, where you're not supposed to send emails to people that don't opt into receiving emails from you. So don't, I would say it's not a good idea. However, let's talk about a solution to that problem. So the problem is you want more people on your email list. Solution is how do you find people who care about the things that you're doing? And what can you offer them in return? Something that is valuable. And so when we're talking about lead magnets, that's what we're talking about. So that could be here are some examples, a recipe for, you know, I don't know what a recipe is an example I've seen people do. A bucket list. For example, I worked with an animal welfare organization. So they created a fun bucket list of things that you can do with your pets. A petition. A petition is a great way to get new email subscribers. And so you're creating something that is of value to the other person that brings in your ideal audience. So your ideal donor would be someone who cares about, for example, this one was animal welfare. So we created these two lead magnets and we promoted them using digital ads. And we were in 2 months, we received 7,000 new email addresses, which is amazing. So you are kind of paying for it, but these people are opting into
Right.
receiving something from you. And then you then have these new email addresses, and we can talk a little bit about like what do you do after that. But that's a good way to just get new people on your list. And then you want to make sure you're welcoming them and have a welcome series set up and curated especially for them. But that is a really good way, an effective way to get new people on your list, but they must opt into receiving emails from you. So that's the key.
Totally. And like for, I mean, full transparency, we do things like this where we will teach, I'll go on somebody's webinar and teach something and I do that, in part so I can get some new emails to add to our list, but then I always when I email them I say, "Hey, just so you know, you're going to hear from me a couple times might maybe one or two times a week. If that's not something you're interested in, you
Yeah.
of course welcome to opt out at any time." And there are certain laws now where we have to make sure we have that unsubscribe button
Mhm.
very readily available so people are able to unsubscribe at any time. So yeah, I mean, if you're, totally agree with you. Like purchasing a list, you're probably not going to get the outcome that you're hoping for because those aren't people necessarily that are looking to hear from you, right? They didn't opt into hearing from you. But, Megan gave her example here in the chat. She said she did a cookbook of 5 Ethiopian recipes and it was a huge success. So she used that as a lead magnet. She also made a Facebook ad where people could do that. So, yeah,
Mhm.
stellar idea there. Really great. Something that is about your mission. So you find the people who care about your mission. I think that,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I know that like buying mailing lists is still more accepted, I
yeah.
think. So
Although, yeah, I mean, I do get my mail every day, but a lot of it does go in the recycling bin, if I'm being completely honest about my mail.
I actually received, so let's talk about mail. I received these like hand written notes from the Adventure Project, um, just thanking me for being a donor. Like, you don't always need to be asking people for things. You can be thanking them and writing them handwritten notes too. So.
It's such a good point.
Yeah. And
Um,
oh yeah, so that makes me think of though that like I focus on email marketing, but email is just a part of your marketing strategy, right? So you want to make sure you're omni-channel, you're on social media, you're doing ads, you have your website set up, like all of the things. You're telling the stories, you're gathering the stories, hopefully using
right.
MemoryFox. And yeah, email is just part of the equation. So that's another thing that I just want
Okay.
to mention.
I have one question that I don't think was represented. So I'm sorry if somebody asked this and it didn't make it to the question sheet, but what are your thoughts on, okay, let's talk about a little bit more about the content of the email. So I'm a big fan of having in my emails like reply to me if I can
Mhm.
do this for you or if you're interested in learning more about this and I kind of give three options. What are your thoughts on, making emails even though you're emailing, 10,000 people,
Yeah.
um a two-way street? How do we get people to email us back? What should we be asking people so they really do feel like they're part of the conversation?
Yeah, replies are a great call to action. I wouldn't say that if right now we're talking about end of year, but like in general, you want some sort of signal from the person that they're engaged. And so a click, an open, a reply, and an unsubscribe is not good, but like if they're clicking, it's saying that they're receiving the email. And so that's important too. So when we talk about deliverability, meaning like when an email goes from your email service provider, your MailChimp to Gmail, you want to make sure that you're verifying that you're like a legit sender. And the way that they do that is based off of like the actions that the person takes on the other side. And so the more people you can get to reply, to click, um, to open, the better it's going to be for your deliverability. But when we're talking about building relationships and trust, if you can have an actual person read and reply to emails, and you can encourage that people reply to the emails, then that's amazing. I think
Right.
that should always be a part of your strategy. It should be in your welcome series to new donors. Let us know if you have any questions. Here's my email address. Like, use a legit email address. Um, and I know at scale that can be a little bit difficult, but I think that's what we want, right? Like, we want those real authentic conversations. We want to hear from our people. We want to know what they think, or else we're just guessing. Like, is
Right.
this what they want? Like, let's see, let's throw out this email and see if people like it. If
Right.
you can get real people to answer, I think that's gold.
I completely agree. We like to recommend to our storytellers, like when they do get a donation and they send that thank you follow-up email, in that thank you follow-up email, we recommend a MemoryFox campaign, but you can do it without one. But you say something like, let us know why you gave today. Let us know
Yeah.
what is it about our mission that inspired you to give today. And you're not going to get everyone replying. You might not even get 10%, but you might get one, and it's a really good answer, and it's a really interesting person that is so passionate about your mission, and now maybe they're your next big volunteer. Maybe they come work for you. It could be anything.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're big on it being a two-way street. Okay, we just have a couple more minutes, so I want to give the big wrap-up question, which is always my favorite question to ask at the end of things. And that is, what is your one final takeaway that you would like to share when it comes to end of year emailing? And I want you, this could be something that maybe we haven't talked about at all yet this hour, or maybe it's just something you want to reiterate. One final thing for our audience today.
If you can segment your list. So send an email to your donors and your non-donors. Let's say you just start there. Like, just start with your donors and your non-donors, okay? So segment your list, make sure that you're sending a personalized message to that list. Like, what is the list past behavior? If they donated, then what are we asking them to do next? If they haven't donated, then what are we asking them to do next? Make their first gift. So you want to acknowledge that, like, the donor and what the next step is for them. If you're writing for everybody, then you're not going to get the same response as if you're writing for the specific audiences and personalizing your messaging based on their behaviors, their interests, what they've done in the past for you. Um, so I would say that. And if you're not able to do that, that is fine. Just work towards that maybe next year or your next campaign. Now that you know better, do better.
Right.
And I love that quote. And the other thing is, like, let's say you're like, you don't have anything written and you're, not sure what
Going
to
to begin.
do. You're like, shoot, we haven't done any of this. I'm not sure what to do. I would say focus on those last 3 days of the year. Um, and just like send, 3 emails on the 31st in the morning, the afternoon, and before, the deadline and at night, just letting people know, like, now is the time to give. That's where you're going to see the biggest. That's always on the 31st. That's always where we see the most donations come in. So if you don't do anything else, then please do that.
Okay. Got it. So we're going to segment our list, but even if we can't get to that before the end of the year, we're definitely going to send emails on those last 3 days, especially on the
Mhm.
31st. Everyone on the call, you heard it. Those are your calls to action after this. Thank you for coming, and thank you for learning. And if you didn't do anything but at least send emails on the 31st, then you still learned something. So I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Katelyn. Thank you everyone for coming. Drop in the chat a little bit of love for Katelyn for all of her expertise, for sharing it with us today. I wrote down, some quick notes, and I'm also excited to brain dump right after this and write down some more stuff, because I learned a lot, and I just think that this has been such a valuable hour, and thank you all for spending an hour with us. A couple quick things from me and the MemoryFox team. You're all invited to come to a community demo tomorrow. If you are interested in learning more about what MemoryFox is all about, how we help you collect impact stories, come to the community demo. It's just going to be 30 minutes. We're going to go through it all so quickly. And then also, this is, a very shameless plug for me. but I'm putting together the next year's ethical storytelling report. And if you haven't taken my survey yet, I would consider it a personal favor if you would please take my 10-question survey. I hope that you think ethical storytelling is something you're prioritizing in 2025. But your answers are anonymous, so even if you're not, that's fine too. Go ahead and take my survey. I dropped that there for you as well. So thank you, Katelyn. Thank you for wrapping up our last event of the year and for all the great advice.
Can you believe it? Oh my gosh.
I know we were saying, I can't believe it's December, the second week of December. Wishing you all the best as you are rounding out Giving Tuesday, wrapping up end of year giving. Looking forward to seeing you all in 2025. And thanks again.
Thanks, Carly. Bye, everyone. Thank you.